Check it out, Casperr!
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome to TF2 Best Loadouts. This series where we're looking at this humble gamer's opinion on the best loadout for each of the 9 classes in Team Fortress 2, starting with this bragging Bostonian bastard, the Scout.
Yeah, why don't you come over and say that to my face, tough guy?
The Scout is one of the most unique classes in the game in terms of his passive abilities. He can run faster than any other class, by default. He's the only class who can double jump, by default, and he is the only class who has a 2x objective capture rate, by default. All of these attributes paint a picture of a guy who's designed for a few quite specific uses. For example, his speed and jumping abilities allow him to take alternative routes and flank behind the enemy team, or get to the capture points early in the game, which is of course further encouraged via his increased capture rate. So of course, the best loadout for this loudmouth pipsqueak is going to complement his role as a flanker and early objective aggressor. For the primary, we've got the scattergun. So this choice may sound ever so slightly counterintuitive based on what I just told you, given the fact that there are multiple scout primaries focused around improved mobility. The Babyface's blaster gives increased speed, and the soda popper can grant 3 trillion jumps on cooldown, or even the effective triple jump offered by the Force of Nature. But I personally don't think any of these benefits outweigh the negatives of the weapons. All of the aforementioned guns have a reduced clip size alongside their other drawbacks, and of course their benefits. Whilst having only 4 shots in a clip compared to 6 might not sound like a big difference, when each shot at close range has the potential to do over 100 damage, then you could easily be missing out on up to 2 kills on full health opponents, or at the very least damaging opponent enough to cause their retreat and secure your own survival. And regardless, Scout's already high mobility means that in most situations, having additional speed or hops like Kobe will probably be as much of a hindrance to you as it is to the enemy, because tracking your target whilst rapidly moving obviously becomes more difficult. High speed, 2 jumps, and a weapon which will fully kill most classes in 2 or 3 shots up close and finish off any class in less means that your victory is almost always assured if you're picking your fights intelligently, and using the 4 or 3 shots you have in reserve will allow you to fight multiple opponents at once. Couple this up with the Scout's natural ambush playstyle, and you should be able to get nice and close to the enemy and release maximum pellets into their meaty bodies all at once before they can react. For the secondary slot, we've got the Winger. Given that we chose a high power primary firearm, having a secondary with high power and super damage isn't really necessary, which is why I've chosen the Winger as the next best item in our loadout. The Winger sacrifices 7 bullets in a clip for the benefit of a noticeably increased jump height when it's active. Due to the super high potential of our primary weapon, we're very rarely going to be entering fights with our pistol as our active weapon. In fact, our sidearm is there to use immediately after engagements where we have expended all 6 of our shots from our primary, and we now have to finish someone off who is either low health or too far out of the range of our scattergun to be effective. The Winger still reloads very quickly, just like any pistol, so the fact that you've got 5 bullets in a clip instead of 12 will rarely be a punishing factor. Of course, the main reason that we use the Winger is because of the aforementioned jump height. As I mentioned with the scattergun alternatives, Scout's high maneuverability by default means extra speed and jump are rarely required for fights, and I would also recommend not using the Winger specifically to jump over enemies' heads in the middle of a battle. Instead, the Winger can be drawn outside of a battle and used to navigate flank routes easier and quicker in order to maximize Scout's ambush potential, whilst remaining a strong enough weapon to use to finish someone off if you catch them retreating. As the melee weapon in the loadout, I'm going for the Boston Basher. We already know that Scout's primary weapon is extremely lethal at point blank range. We've also chosen a particular primary with a lot of opportunity for close range attacks due to its clip size. We also know that we've got a pretty powerful secondary weapon which we can pull out in any situation we have emptied out our primary. So really, hitting someone with our melee weapon is going to be a last resort, unless there's some utility value to our melee which cannot be offered by our primary or secondary weapons. For me, the Boston Basher fits into this loadout best, and for a couple of reasons. For starters, it does a normal amount of damage, but it's got the bonus of also doing bleed damage over time. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're most likely to be bringing out our melee weapon in a dire situation where we've used all of our bullets and death is imminent. So, striking someone with a weapon which can damage them after you have died is definitely a desirable option. Of course, The only drawback of this weapon is that you damage yourself. However, if we are in a situation where death is pretty likely anyway, then doing this isn't really going to affect the outcome. But that negative can even be turned around into a positive, because damaging yourself isn't always a bad thing. For those of you who are familiar with the competitive meta in Team Fortress 2, you'll know that playing around a medic's overcharge is super important. Therefore, charging this up will always be a priority. Damaging yourself as a scout allows your medic to keep a maximum charge rate, and join this up with the fact that medics healing scouts now also inherit their run speed, then a medic sticking with a scout hitting themselves with the Boston Basher is a great way to build charge and get an advantage over the enemy. So, to summarize, we've got a super agile class who excels at flanking and surprise attacks, so we've chosen a high damage close range primary with lots of shots, a secondary which we can use to finish off those who are running away or when our primary is out of clip, and it can also be used on the flank routes. And as a last resort, we've got a melee weapon which can avenge us after death in crisis situations, or even be used to help our medic friends build charge quicker. As with any loadout of any game, there's no such thing as a perfect answer to every situation. And of course, there's going to be times where your Boston Basher will fail you, or you would escape that 3 versus 1 if only you had more run speed from the Babyface's blaster, or indeed, there was a time where you just needed to run past a sentry with the bonk atomic punch, and you couldn't, because you got a pistol. However, this loadout is a super powerful one, and I think you will enjoy using it as much as me. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to see all the future best loadouts, and check out a couple of my older videos. One is this favorite video that I think I've probably ever produced, and here's another tutorial video I've done, but this time on competitive play. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.